get to the end of the road. But the suspension can be saved and crafted into cutting-edge technology, circa medieval Europe. You Pull It 86 Auto and Metal Recyclers in Roxeter, Ontario, salvages thousands of cars and trucks every year, and 95% of every vehicle gets to ride again. The salvage op tears up and grinds down the scrapped vehicles so they can harvest the parts for used cars and new products. A 21st century truck suspension spring will be reformed into a 16th century sword. Junked cars litter the wrecking yard like an automotive graveyard, ready to be reborn. To make the replica sword, not any metal can make the cut. But hidden inside every truck's suspension system is the flexible, durable steel the blacksmith is looking for. The first step in the destruction is to pull the metal part from the wreckage. A wrecking yard crane clutches the truck in its powerful jaws and bites down hard. It tears the truck apart to expose the coiled steel suspension. Most suspension springs are made of a tough low alloy or medium carbon steel, which makes it both very strong yet flexible enough not to crack under pressure. The perfect combination for forging a 16th century sword. A salvager sifts through the metal carcass and locates the suspension system. He finds the 3/4 inch spring and cuts it loose with an angle grinder. The coil is ready to be forged into a prized replica sword. The blacksmith applies old-world craftsmanship to stretch, heat, and hone a 21st century suspension spring into a 16th century sword. Salvage operators have torn up a junkyard truck to recover the suspension spring. The high-grade steel spring travels 20 minutes down the road and 500 years into the past. Every year, the blacksmiths at Thack Ironworks create 20 medieval-style swords using truck suspension springs. The suspension coil needs to be stretched and straightened before the alchemy can begin. In the workshop, the blacksmith heats the coil in a coal-stoked forge. When the temperature hits a red-hot 790 degrees Celsius, it's pliable enough to be worked. Using bending forks, the smith gradually unwinds the hot spring coil by coil, pounding and pulling until it's a single 90-centimeter long piece. The suspension spring is now a steel rod, ready to be reimagined. The first step in creation is to flatten the steel shaft. The smith guides the steel along the anvil, using a 35-kilogram power hammer to pummel and sculpt the rod into a steel bar. The blacksmith cuts off the blade by hammering it on the sharp edge of an anvil chisel. The craftsman puts the blade back into the forge, reheating it to 790 degrees Celsius. He hammers the blade, tapering the steel on either side, giving the sword a piercing point and lethal strength. The shaft is ready for the next stage in its transformation. The blacksmith eases the blade along a ceramic belt grinder, spinning at 1,000 RPM, shaving off minute shards of metal. It takes a skilled hand and years of experience to achieve this kind of exacting symmetry. The blade needs to be rehardened so the sharpened sword will keep its edge. The smith heats the blade in a propane forge at precisely 500 degrees Celsius. He pulls the blade out of the oven and lowers it into a tank filled with quenching oil. Quenching locks the molecular structure of the steel, helping it retain a razor-sharp edge. After about 45 seconds, the blacksmith pulls the sword from its quenching bath and readies it for tempering. Quenching can make the steel too rigid, so the tempering process re-softens the blade to keep it flexible and durable. The smith sparks an oxyacetylene torch and runs the flame along the center of the blade, heating it to 400 degrees Celsius. He wipes the blade with a water-soaked rag to cool it down slowly, which rehardens the metal in controlled stages. The final stage in the process is finishing. The blacksmith buffs the sword to a fine luster to bring out its unique facets. The sword is ready to be crowned. The craftsman slips on the skull-shaped hilt, inspired by the sword's pirating past. A single screw locks the ornate handle in place. Then, long strokes with a whetstone hone the blade to a surgical edge. The replica sword is complete, sought after by collectors who pay thousands of dollars for a stab at owning a piece of the past. New ways of thinking and old-world craftsmanship have resurrected a useless old truck spring and turned it into a sharp new showpiece.
Bagi memastikan cabaran pada bulan-bulan mendatang dilalui dengan teratur dan lancar, kapasiti vaksinasi di seluruh negara akan ditingkatkan dengan pembukaan lebih banyak PPV selain menambah tenaga kerja kesihatan dan juga sukarelawan. Ketika ini sebanyak 1,400 PPV sedang beroperasi di seluruh negara. Selain daripada PPV Mega, kita sebenarnya telah membuka banyak PPV dalam pelbagai bentuk dan saiz. Selain daripada PPV sementara di perkampungan orang asli, kita juga membuka PPV di rumah ibadat, sekolah, universiti, dewan komuniti, tempat kerja, kawasan peladangan dan juga restoran. Kita juga telah melaksanakan PPV pandu lalu serta unit bergerak yang telah masuk ke kampung-kampung dan melaksanakan vaksinasi dari rumah ke rumah. Vaksinasi kepada masyarakat luar bandar yang tidak mempunyai akses kepada aplikasi MySejahtera juga dipermudahkan, yang mana pendaftaran dan rekod vaksinasi mereka hanya akan dimuat naik ke dalam sistem ketika mereka menerima suntikan vaksin. Selain itu, sebanyak 1,500 klinik swasta dan 120 hospital swasta juga akan terlibat sebagai PPV bagi memudahkan orang ramai menerima vaksin mereka.
Today on How It's Made. Basque pelota balls. Pallet trucks. Dumplings. And brass faucets. Pelota is a ball game that originated in the Basque region of France and Spain. Most versions are played against a wall, in which the player throws the ball either by hand, racket, bat, or basket. Occasionally, the game is played in teams. where players are separated by a net or a line on the ground. Masked pelota balls come in different diameters and weights, according to the type of play for which they're designed. But all of them have had the same basic construction for hundreds of years, a core wrapped in rubber, wool, and leather. To make the rubber wrapping, this machine deposits a line of natural rubber onto a paper strip. Next,